Hey, what's up guys? Sam here from Aegis Media TV on YouTube. And yeah, welcome back to the final part of my newest intro tutorial series here on YouTube. I hope you liked the first two parts of this series. And yeah, like I said in the last video, today I want to show you how to create those cylindric kind of elements you will find in my newest intro number 4. So let's start by selecting our blank world map again and click and drag it to our new comp icon on the bottom of our program. And yeah, this time we want to make some small changes. So first create a new solid, right click, new solid, call this, I don't know, maybe just BG and click OK. Make sure to drag it beneath our blank world map, then hit T for opacity and decrease it to something about, let's say, for example, 30%. Then hit Ctrl D to duplicate it, hit Enter to change the name and call this, for example, BG Grid. Then apply an effect called Grid as well. Okay. Then zoom in a bit and again change the size form to width and height sliders and increase both values to, let's say, something about 150, for example, and decrease the border to something about, let's say, 2 or even 1. Yeah, I think 1 looks good. Then go back to our construction comp. Let's make the background invisible for the moment. And drag our blank world map. Let's move it outside our footage folder and call it world cylinder, for example. And yeah, just move this comp inside our construction comp. Okay. And then go to your effects and presets panel and type in again CC cylinder and apply this effect to your world cylinder composition. Okay, I will first create now a camera, so right click, new camera. Make sure to change a lens of 50mm to get a neutral perspective, so no distortion at all. Of course, you can also choose a wide angle, but I will now choose, like I said, a neutral perspective. Click OK. And the cool thing about this cylinder effect is that it works with a normal camera, so it's kind of real in 3D space. If you compare it to the sphere effect from last video, this effect, by the way, the sphere effect, isn't really 3D, so it's just a 2D effect, so it won't work with the camera. I forgot to mention that, so just a small tip on the side. If you want to animate the CC sphere, you have to use either the built-in position controller, just parent the offset or the rotation to a null object to control the whole sphere. So yeah, let's go back to our cylinder, and like I said, this effect works with the camera, so let's hit C to open or to use our camera tool, and then use your right mouse click, hold and then move around your mouse to zoom in and out. I will now just move out a bit to see the whole cylinder. Let's make it also fit. Okay, and yeah, as you can see right now, we already have a quite cool looking world map. Then again, like in part 2, we want to duplicate our cylinder. The top one, choose render outside, and the bottom composition, choose render inside. Then like before, go to shading and decrease the ambient to, let's say, 25 for example, and also mess around with the shading for the outside, so maybe increase it to 75 for example, and of course rename it. Again, outside controller, and just inside. And yeah, after that, once again, open up position and rotation. Alt click all of these 6 options. Okay, then go up to our outside controller and repeat the same step. So alt click all of these stopwatches. And then just like before with the sphere effect, let's make that bigger. Parent all of these effects from the inside composition to our controller, our outside controller. So I will do that quick by now. So X to X, Y to Y, and so on. So let me just do that quick. Okay, come on. Okay, so like I said in the last video, this is very important so that you can Then move around both sides of the cylinder by just using one layer, because otherwise you would have to animate both layers separately, which takes a lot of more time and is just a pain in the ass, believe me. So like I said, parent all effects to our controller, and then for example go up to the Y rotation. Let's move to the beginning of our animation, so 0, then click the stopwatch and move forward for, let's say, about, I don't know, maybe 5 seconds, depending on how fast you want your world map to spin around. So just 5 seconds, and then just type in 1, so that your world map will just do one perfect rotation for a time of 5 seconds. So yeah, spins right. I think that looks good. And then hit U 2 times to open up your settings. Then go to Y rotation right here, or yeah, Y rotation, and then type in loop out and cycle. So the same expression like for the background. Then close it, hit enter. Hit U to close all settings, and if you now move around, you see that your world map is spinning and spinning and spinning until your composition is ending. So a very cool expression to loop some animations. And yeah, after that it's now time to add more and more details. Therefore, let's go back to our background compositions and take our News24 text, for example. Click and drag that on top of our cylinder. Then again apply this effect CC cylinder to our news text. For example, choose outside and maybe scale it up to, I don't know, let's say something about 125, for example. Of course you can, let's open up our news text. You can scale it up, so go to character and just make it a bit bigger. So for example, yeah, something about 65. Then move it to the right side to make those gaps match. So for example, something like that. Yeah, I think that should be quite good. Then go back to our construction comp. And yeah, now we have our News24 spinning around our world cylinder. Then again go to shading, change the ambient to, let's say, 75 for example, or let's say 65, and also render to outside. Then hit Ctrl D and choose inside, move the inside below or beneath our world cylinder inside so that it really stays behind this cylinder. And then again parent the position and rotation to our outside controller or outside layer. So let's change the name, by the way. Okay, and also inside. And yeah, then you can add more and more details. I will just show you a couple of cool things you can add to your animation. So the next step may be our LED screen. So again, move that on top of our world cylinder. Okay, let's make that a bit bigger. Again, apply the cylinder effect. And then let's scale it up a bit. So for example, yeah, something about 120%. Of course, it looks way too big, so let's open that up. Let's make all other effects invisible and just choose frame, hit U 2 times, and let's bring the height down to, for example, 200. Then, for example, decrease the stroke width to something about 8, or let's say 10. Then LED dots. Also change the size from our solid to, let's say, I don't know, let's try something like 200 as well. Click OK. And then the same also for the arrow. So select your arrow, hit S for scale, and scale that down. So maybe something like that. Okay, let's delete the copy. And then go back to start of your animation and adjust the animation. So hit P for precision and move that to the left outside of the window, as the same as in the background tutorial. So just use your arrow keys on the keyboard, move to the left side, and then hit K to jump to the next keyframe. And yeah, let's move it back. So for example, something like maybe something like that. Okay, then hit U to close the settings, hit Ctrl D to duplicate it and choose blend mode add to add this kind of glow effect, so before and after. Of course you can also choose a different blending mode, but I like add now. Let's close LED screen and close also News24 text and go back to our construction com. And if you now look at our LED, it looks much better because it's way smaller than before. Then of course again go to render, choose outside, call this outside controller. Okay, duplicate it, drag it below our cylinder, world cylinder by the way, and call this inside. Then change render to inside, shading to let's say 25 for example. And of course change the shading for the outside to let's say 75. And yeah, now it's time to move around these objects, so go to position and for example choose Y to move it up and down. Okay, so maybe something like that. Like I said before, you have to parent the inside to the outside layer or controller, because otherwise your layer will stay like before. Okay, I will not do that to save some time, but like I said, just do it and take some time. Okay, then after you've created your elements around the cylinder, it's now time to add maybe some elements at the bottom and the top of our animation. Therefore, we want to again create some kind of HUD stuff. So again, select your ellipse tool, drag a nice circle, then go to your grid options and activate a grid. And like I said before, it's important to align our HUD circle with some of these lines to really adjust the pivot point, because it's never centered by default. And if you later want to rotate the circle, it will rotate around this anchor point right here. So it would rotate around this point, so something like that. So we have to, like I said before, align our circle with these grid lines. So maybe something like that. Then take your pen behind tool and move your pivot point in the center of our sphere. Okay, then after that, right click, choose transform and center in view. That's very important by the way. Let's deactivate the grid for the moment and make that fit. Then hit U 2 times again. Let's make our fill invisible and then increase the stroke width to let's say something like 50 for example. Then of course hit F4 on your keyboard or toggle switch modes and choose 3D layer. Then hit R for rotation and choose X rotation 90 degrees. And then move it to the bottom of our composition, so just move it all the way down, so maybe something like that. And as you now can see, it is very small, so hit U 2 times again. And now choose size and scale that way up, so maybe something like, yeah, maybe something like that. Okay. Let's also adjust the stroke width to something about 200 for example. Okay, and then like always you can mess around with the dashes, so hit the plus icon and just choose some values and some looks you like. Maybe, yeah, maybe something like that looks cool maybe. Like I said, it's up on you to decide. Then hit U to close it, maybe call this HUD1. And yeah, now comes a very important part, because as you can see our HUD layer is now above our cylinder. So if you want, let's make that fit again. So if you want your HUD to be below our cylinder, you have to drag this HUD below our cylindric element, so all the way down. Okay, and if you want your HUD to be above, let's duplicate this by the way, you have to put it between inside and the outside of our world cylinder. It's very important. So let's move that up by the way, all the way up, so maybe something like that. Okay, let's also change the color for example, so choose an effect called tint. Okay, and again choose maybe something like a red color. Let's copy that and also paste it for the bottom HUD element. Okay, and yeah, as you can now see, this object is definitely below our cylindric element. You can see it's kind of gray instead of just pure red like here. The same also for our top layer. So yeah, that's very important, so please keep in mind. I will repeat it. If you want to create some elements below your cylinder, you have to put them all the way down below each of these cylindric elements. And if you want some HUDs at the top of your cylinder, you have to add them between the world cylinder inside and the world cylinder outside. It's very important to maintain that kinda realistic perspective look. Okay, and now let's select our camera again and hit C. And the cool thing now, like I said before, is that this effect is kinda real in 3D space. So if you now just click and move your camera around, you can see that we have a very cool 3D object or very cool 3D elements. So we can then just keyframe our camera to start an animation. So you will usually use, for example, hit P or just open up these settings, choose transform, and then just hit the stopwatch for position and rotation, and then just start your animation. So for example, start very close and then pan a bit far away, maybe rotate your camera around the sphere. It's really up on you to decide how your animation will look like. You can even mess around with depth of field to give it an even more classy or cool look. Of course, you can, let's go back to our default settings. So maybe something like that. You can, or you should, like I always say, add more details. So let's go back to our HUD1 layer, hit Ctrl D to duplicate it, maybe scale it up, maybe something like that. Maybe bring the stroke width down and the dashes, delete all dashes. And then you can also, for example, move these HUD interfaces around in Z space. So you can move it up a bit or you can move it down, just to create even more perspective and even more 3D look. And yeah, I would always recommend to, for example, start at the bottom, create all of these interfaces, and then duplicate all of these and move it up, because by doing this, you will only do it once instead of copying all the values, which will also take a lot of time. Okay guys, finally let's make our background visible again. Okay, of course the background in the foreground doesn't match now, the colors are a bit off and also the perspective, so it's up on you to start animating and start making both objects look good together. But yeah, that's it for this tutorial. Like always, please try out things on your own and mess around with all effects I showed you. To be honest, I really don't know anything more currently about creating those news intros. It really comes down to adding more and more details and spending a lot of time for very small parts like those background moving things and very small details for these HUD elements. And yeah, like before, you can also try, for example, CC Glass for these HUD elements to make them look a bit more interesting than just those plain boring elements. But yeah, like I said, that's all up on you to add more and more detail. Once again, I hope you liked this tutorial and find it useful. If you do, please like and subscribe to never miss an episode of my channel. I will also upload more tutorials about Photoshop soon. And like always, please check out my Facebook page, maybe write me a message about some new ideas, maybe about tutorial requests. It's really up on you to make this channel and my Facebook page alive. I'm also very interested in seeing your results from these tutorials, so if you have a finished work, please write me a message or send the link to Facebook, or even put the link in the comments so everybody can see your result. Like I said, it would be really interesting for me to see what you can do with my tutorials. There's really nothing more I could say than I hope I see you next time, and like always, stay creative and have fun.